The views and opinions expressed do not necessarily reflect those of Access Fort Wayne, the Allen County Public Library, or any other supporting groups. If you'd like to produce a show, call us at 260-421-1250.
Let me be your lighthouse so I can show you the way. Let me be your shining light, I'll keep you from drifting away. I'm the one that makes you try when...
Hello, this is Patty Hunter, or Patty's Page. I'm at the Concordia Theological Seminary here in Fort Wayne, Indiana, and my guest today is Pastor Peter Scaer.
Yeah, good to see you, Patty.
Good to see you
Welcome.
again. Oh, Happy New Year.
Yeah, Happy New Year.
Wow, we're going to talk about the petition that you have put on Facebook and other areas. It's about the hate crimes bill that the Governor Eric Holcomb is trying to push through. Tell me more about that, dear.
Yeah, it's not a bill yet, at least as far as I understand, but it's hate crimes legislation. And it's being pushed by Governor Holcomb. And the idea is that there would be special punishments, not simply for the crime, but for crimes that are associated with what he calls hate. So sometimes I like to think about it as thought crimes. So certain thoughts are simply should not be allowed to be had. Now, when he first pushed it, he was pushing it because there was graffiti done at a Jewish synagogue. And now we can understand that that's a pretty hateful thing to do, to take graffiti and to mar a synagogue with it. And it was done by a 20-year-old, probably a fool, obviously a fool, and he was accompanied by his 19-year-old girlfriend. And it's a sad situation. He shouldn't have done it. But at the other hand, there are laws on the books by which he will be punished, and rightly so.
Right.
And now, the last time I heard about this, he was liable to go to prison or to receive a sentence up to 10 years in prison. Now, what that tells me is that the laws on the books are already sufficient to handle things like this.
Yeah.
I don't think there's anybody who would say a 20-year-old who spray paints a synagogue should, be put to death or something like that. He did something which was stupid and also evil. I hope he learns from it. If he goes to jail, so be it. But if he receives a 10-year sentence, it would seem to me there's no need for an extra law there.
No.
Judges are already equipped to offer such sentences.
So why does Governor Holcomb really putting the push on? I mean, why? If you already have it in the
real truth behind it is this has nothing to do with that synagogue, but it's being pushed by the Chamber of Commerce and also by Rainbow Pride and the LGBT gender movement.
And they're putting the pressure on the governor himself.
They're putting the pressure on it, and big business has been doing this for a while. An example of this we saw in North Carolina, where the governor wanted to pass a law that simply said when it came to state bathrooms, that there were bathrooms for men and for women, for boys and for girls, for the safety of everyone.
Right.
And the NCAA came in and boycotted the state, saying, no, you can't do that. And I think one thing, people get confused about this because, they label it hate, and who are the haters? It's always the Christians. And
they're trying to set the truth, what's going on out there, and we are called haters.
Yeah, so an example is the Southern Poverty Law Center, which is cited again and again in articles about hate groups.
Mm-hmm.
Well, they call the Indiana Federation of Families, the Indiana Family Institute, that to them is a hate group. Why? Because we believe that marriage is still between a man and a woman, and that every child deserves to have a mom and dad. That's all we say. And that's considered hate. Another group, the Alliance Defending Freedom, which is a wonderful group that's won a number of Supreme Court cases, they're called haters. And so it's a label placed upon people, and it's meant to poison the well and to make us seem what we are not, because we don't have any hate in us at all. We believe in equal protection for everybody.
Yes, especially the unborn.
Especially the unborn, absolutely. And, trying to help people understand this, this movement tries to position itself as the new civil rights movement. So we all agree, and look at the 1960s.
Right.
You look at a drinking fountain. It is unjust to say that anybody of any nationality, race, gender, or whatever it is, drinking fountains are for everybody.
Mm-hmm.
And it is completely unjust to say, oh, because you are a man or a woman or whatever it is, or because you are black or white or any color, that you can't use that drinking fountain. That is unjust. And that's where the civil rights were right.
Yeah.
But the difference is, now they're talking about gender that way.
Yeah, that's it. You're not a boy, you're not a girl. You could be raised, be whatever you want to be when you get older. Yeah, right?
Well, not only is that false, but now we're penalized for even saying that. And you see, gender is different than race. So, for instance, now a drinking fountain should be open to all people. But should a bathroom be open to all people?
No.
Do you want, as a woman, when you go to the bathroom, to have some man come in, follow you afterwards?
You never know what that man will do to you.
Of course not.
That's true.
And men happen to be stronger.
Right.
So women are vulnerable, and for that reason.
And little girls going to the bathroom or whatever, men follow them through. That's...
But do I also want my son to go into a bathroom and then have a woman follow him? No, I don't want that.
No.
And now, here's an amazing thing, so you can't say anything. Well, do you know, Patty, that there was a gym teacher who was reprimanded for this reason? He was supposed to watch over a boy's locker room just to make sure everything is safe. So he's in there while all the boys are changing from their street clothes to their gym clothes, back to their street clothes. He's simply to supervise it. Well, there was a dear young woman who was confused, but she said, I'm actually a boy. Well, she was a girl, and she was a young teenage girl. And this guy who was the gym teacher said, hey, wait a second, I can't supervise this locker room because then I'm looking at this young girl when she doesn't have any clothes on. That's not something that I, as a man, a grown man, should be in a locker room with a 13, 14-year-old girl who's naked.
That's a red flag right there.
I mean, and that poor guy, though, was reprimanded because of that.
What's happening?
Well, this is not about equality, because we all believe in equality. It's not about compassion.
Right.
I mean, we're compassionate. But it is a kind of a madness, and I think it's being used, though, by the secular left in order to silence Christians, to drive them away from the public square, to silence opposition. This is much bigger than the gender issue in the sense that this is really, I mean, in a sense, I can see our liberties being taken away from us.
Persecution.
Oh, it's absolutely coming. And in some sense, it's already here. We've seen it with Barronelle Stutzman, who was the seller of flowers in the state of Washington. And her livelihood is on the line. Her case has gone to courts. It's still in the courts. But she's a dear, dear woman. She served everyone and loved everyone. She hired gay people, so she didn't have any problems with gay people. That was never it.
Mm-hmm.
But simply one of her friends said, I would like you to arrange flowers for my wedding. And she just, she looked at him, she hugged him, she loved him. But she said, when I create a bouquet of flowers, it's not simply offering a service like selling an orange. It says, I'm creating this bouquet to celebrate something.
Mm-hmm.
I can't celebrate a gay wedding because I don't think that that's according to God's plan.
Right.
But if you come and you want flowers for a birthday, if you want them because you got a raise or a promotion, I would do it right away.
Mm-hmm.
So it's not wanting to, help people or serve people. It's because they don't want to use their talents to celebrate something
that is wrong.
Imagine it goes both ways. What if I made T-shirts and I was pro-choice?
Right.
And I would come to you and say, well, I'd like a T-shirt, and I would like the T-shirt to say, abortion is murder. Well, that's what I believe. Well, what if you're pro-choice? Do you have to make that T-shirt? Because you don't agree with that. Is it going to be compelled upon you? This same thing happened in Colorado with a wonderful man by the name of Jack Phillips.
Yep.
And he was a baker there.
Oh, the baker.
And his case went to the Supreme Court.
How'd that turn out? I haven't heard the results from that.
Well, he narrowly won
his
case, and it was the same sort of thing, but it's not over yet. Because, and I've met him, just a wonderful guy. He loves everybody. He has Bible studies in his little bakery. It's a small bakery. One of, hundreds in Denver. There's so many places anybody could get baked goods. His cupcakes are delicious. But they targeted him and a gay couple went and said, we want you to bake a wedding cake for us. And he says, I can't.
It's not.
I can't do that because I'm using my artistic skills to celebrate something I don't believe in.
Mm.
Now, he narrowly won that case. So what happened next? Well, another person came in and said, we want you to bake a cake to celebrate our transgender, whatever, our gender change.
This is getting out of hand.
It's getting out of hand. They're targeting Christians.
Right.
Because of these kinds of laws. And, I don't know, how Governor Holcomb feels about these things. Personally, maybe he just doesn't know. A lot of people are afraid to say anything because if you say anything, look what happened to, do you remember, during the RFRA thing, what happened to Governor Pence, who was Vice President Pence?
Right.
They treated him terribly. They called him every name on the book, and they called him a hater. And
they're the ones that are the haters, not us.
Do we think that, are we now going to say that Vice President, are we as Republicans, and I'm a Republican, are we going to say that Vice President Pence is a hater? Well, I'm not going to say that. But these are the same people that are making these accusations and charges. And the group is called, it's so interesting to me, it's called, is it Indiana Forward or Forward Indiana? Well, they change their name all the time depending on the legislation, but they're the same people. But look at the name Forward. Mm-hmm. Forward means progress. Mm-hmm. We would call it progressive.
Is it F?
No, that was the RFRA. That's the that was that was the reason that Pence got into trouble because that was the Religious Freedom Restoration Act.
Oh,
and then they came down. Corporations came down like a ton of bricks on him. But Forward Indiana, they are progressives. They never stop. So it's hate crime legislation this time. Next time it will be SOGI laws.
SOGI. Okay, what does that do?
That's sexual orientation and gender identity. So,
Satan is really stirring things up.
I don't know if you know the story of... this is the one that I really want to bring up to my fellow Hoosiers, is the story of John Klug. John Klug was an orchestra teacher, taught music in Brownsburg at the high school. Mm-hmm. And according to a new policy, I'm not even sure if it was written down or passed, but he was supposed to use the pronouns that were chosen by the students.
Their names.
Well,
They were.
Their
Yeah,
pronouns. So
pronouns.
like, so there was some kid who was, confused. And I forget whether it was a young woman who said she was a boy or a man, or a young man who thought he was a woman. But, it was one of those things. And John Klug says, well, I can't say that because, just because I could say right now I'm a girl, it doesn't make me a girl.
You were born a man.
Yeah, I'm a man. So now, do I have a right to say I'm a girl? Yeah, I have a right to say I'm a girl, but do you have to then say, agree with me? Do you have to play along?
Oh, you have to force it?
Yeah, you could say to me, well, you might think you are, but you're not.
Yeah.
And so what he did was, he says, well, I don't want to cause problems.
Right.
He said, instead of using the pronouns, I just won't use them at all for anybody in the class. So if there's a Johnson in the class, you say, well, Johnson has finished, so you look at Johnson's test.
Mm-hmm.
Johnson did very well.
Mm-hmm.
Well, he did that with all the students. Instead of saying his test,
Or
her test, he just avoided it because he's like, I don't want to cause problems, but I can't be forced to lie. Now, people think, well, what harm is there? There's a lot of harm.
There is a lot of confusion to the kids growing up.
The confusion is horrible because what's happening is, you have a kid who's confused about gender identity, and that's real. We call that gender dysphoria. And a lot of kids go through it a lot of times because of broken families, and that's true. Not having a dad at
who
home.
they are and what they are. And
Yeah, and here's the thing so what happens is a kid very early on, now we're finding at the age 4, 5, and 6,
mm-hmm.
they will be dressed up in the clothes of the opposite sex because they get confused.
brother.
Then what happens? Then they give the kid puberty blockers so that they never actually develop. So you think about Peter Pan, or you hate to say Michael Jackson, so this young, let's say a young boy, biological male, then never goes through puberty. They're left in this state of suspended animation. And then after that, they're often given hormones.
To do a sex change when they're kids.
Well, so if it's a boy who wants to be a girl, they're given estrogen.
Right.
And if it's a girl who wants to be a boy, they give them testosterone. Well, none of this is healthy for a child's health.
And mental state.
Mental state, yeah, absolutely. And then, at the age of 18, it all leads towards the surgery. I mean, I can't even imagine.
Imagine a whole race doing that.
Could you imagine having to be a doctor and to cut off a male member or of an 18-year-old? I mean, how horrible that is. Could you imagine
It's traumatic.
having to carve out what looks like a uterus, whatever it is? But it won't really be. It'll just be this fake version of it. Now, here's the lie that they don't tell you. If indeed a child is simply allowed to grow up,
Right.
because a lot of people are confused. We get this, give them love, give them understanding, give them space and time,
Yeah.
give them good role models. A good male role model, a good female role model. But 90% of children will actually grow out of it if they're allowed to.
Sure. Because kids, when they're a certain age, they say, are you a boy or a girl? I don't know which one.
Yeah, of course. And I've
They're
seen,
just learning.
as a pastor, I had kids who would be, 12-year-old boys who were wearing earrings. And I'm not saying, a boy can't wear an earring, but we're actually being feminine. And, what do? You love them. You let them hang out. You hang out with them.
Right.
You get them outside and play. And 9 times out of 10, the kid will just kind of grow out of that.
Sure. But
And they'll come to feel comfortable in their own body. Now, this is an amazing thing to me because in our society, we tell our young people, we tell women who, they idolize, let's say, this model. Oh, you have to be this thin, this beautiful.
Twiggy. I remember Twiggy.
Yeah, or you might have to have breast surgery, all these things. And we want to say to them, no, your body's just fine.
Leave it alone.
Be comfortable in your own body.
That's
You're
right.
beautiful. And I want to say the same thing with these kids. Give them time to grow up,
Yeah.
to be comfortable in their bodies.
They explore at a certain age what is and what is not. And when they realize what they really are, then they grow into that.
Yeah.
But the way the society is trying to push it now,
Yeah, it's cruel. I think the kids are being played as pawns in this game.
yes,
Because there's another agenda that's going on, and it really doesn't have to do anything with the children.
yeah.
It
It's
has
like
to
a
do-
power struggle or something.
It's a power struggle. You are absolutely right.
How many states have this hate law thing?
Well, that's a great question because
Hate crime law.
this is something that Governor Holcomb has been pushing. And it really does annoy me because he said during the Christmas season that Indiana is on the naughty list.
Naughty list.
I mean, like, these are your Hoosier values here, but we're naughty? No, please, don't tell me that.
Not right.
We're good people.
Yes.
And now, okay, 45 states out of 50 have hate crime legislation. Well, my answer to that would be, well, I've had my kids do this to me. They'll say, well, everybody's doing it. Well, just because everybody's doing it doesn't mean it might actually be the wrong thing to do. And the classic example is, lemmings going off the cliff. They will get in line and everybody just follows in line. Now, one thing to remember is when these states first passed the law, they had no idea what they were getting into.
And now look at them, how they...
Yeah, because if you say, do you believe that we should make special laws against really hateful crimes? Yeah, of course. I mean, that's already in the law, of course. But nobody wants to be a hater, and nobody believes in discrimination against any group.
That's right.
We don't. But now we see the ramifications. We see where this is going, and it doesn't end well. Right now, it's infringing on our liberties, and the liberties I think our people need to think of, especially our First Amendment liberty of free speech. So you can claim to be a duck. I don't then have to come visit you and give you bread to eat. And so I should be able to say what I believe, and I should not be forced to say what I don't believe, like that Brownsburg teacher. The second one is religious liberty, the free exercise of religion. Because if our conscience is no longer, if we have to violate our conscience, then all that's left is the government. And that's where totalitarianism comes in.
Dictatorship and all that sort of stuff.
Well, it's even more than dictatorship, because what we're saying is, as Christians, but in any free society, we say we honor our government, we honor our leaders, absolutely.
Right.
But they don't have ultimate control. Ultimate control belongs to God alone.
I know.
And that's a free society.
Right.
But if you say that I have to violate my conscience, then you're saying that government is God.
Why does that remind me of Germany in Second World War?
Absolutely.
And, yeah.
Or Russia.
Russia.
Or China today.
Or whatever is,
And the other amendment is, just to help people understand, is the 14th,
Yeah.
which is equal protection under the law.
And there's natural law. What is that? Natural law.
Yeah, natural law is the recognition of the way things are. And it's natural law is like gravity. No matter what, it's always going to be there.
Yes.
And one way to understand this, because we had this marriage debate and nobody ever really thought about it. Nobody asked the question, what is marriage? They say, do I have a right to be married? We all have the same right to be married. But they never asked, what is marriage?
Yes.
And marriage is not simply because it's written in the Bible.
Right.
Marriage is a recognition of natural law. And natural law is, I can claim to be a woman, but I'm not having a baby. I can't do it. You can put all the womanly things that look like womanly body parts on me, but I can't have a baby. So that's natural law. So you can change the outside, but you can't change really who I am. The only person that can have a baby is a woman. That's just natural law. Now, why is there marriage? Because a woman the mother will always be present at the birth of a child.
Right.
By nature, natural law.
She has the baby.
But there will always be a biological father, because she can't have a baby by herself. There will always be a biological father.
They're going to try to do cloning.
Oh, that's true. You're right.
Petri dish, making babies fertilize.
Well, this is going to be classic because we won't have natural law. What we'll have is the commodification of children. We'll buy and sell children. Because I create a child, well, I can give you the child, I can sell the child to somebody else, because the child will have no natural ties.
And won't have any rights.
And a child has natural ties because there is a biological father. Now, society has said, across religions, that since the mother is going to be there at the birth of the child, we want the father to be there too.
Right.
And for a child to be raised, we're not like some animals where, where a little baby puppy can become a dog within a year or two. It's not like that. Human beings, children, take years to develop and to grow up.
Oh boy.
And for that reason, we have marriage. Right. So that the father is there, not only at the beginning, but all the way through.
And to help stabilize the family.
Absolutely. And to give that kid a picture of womanhood and manhood. And then it creates this wonderful fabric in society where they're, God willing, they're cousins, aunts and uncles, grandparents. And that's what makes for functioning neighborhoods, for safe neighborhoods. If you look at where things have disintegrated, where the family is falling apart, they're often dangerous places, but the kids have no vision of a future.
Yeah. I was just wondering, this is almost towards the end of the show. Wow, I should interview you more. I just want to know, what would you like to say to my audience and what's cooking? We have about a couple minutes.
I would like to say, be strong in what you know to be true. This is a situation in which we would say the emperor has no clothes. We kind of know instinctively what's right, but too many people are afraid to say it. And I think this whole situation could be turned around with just a little bit of courage and people willing to stand up for what, again, the goodness of the things that are right. You don't have to be a Christian to see this, but when you look at our society, kids need dads. That's the biggest thing. And that's why there's marriage. Men and women are not the same. We're equal, we could say that, but we complement one another. We each bring strengths.
We become one when we're married.
Yeah, and it's wonderful. Kids need both. They need the nurture of a mom. They need the strength of a dad. So we're talking about basic kind of values that I think many people still know instinctually, but are afraid to say it. I don't think we should be afraid.
Well, thank you, Pastor Scaer.
It's my pleasure. Thanks for coming, Patty.
And thank you for being on my show.
Yeah, glad to do it.
Thank you for tuning in. I'll see you next week. God bless.
Godspeed, my love, until we meet again. You're always in my heart and every dream. Don't let this time apart give in to all our fears. God will keep us close from up above. So until we meet again, Godspeed, my love. God is with us always, and for the rest of our lives.